I have a few questions here, so let me start with the first one. And to panelists, if you feel like you want to answer that question, just go ahead. Should multiple people start to speak at once, then I'll manage it somehow, okay? Good. The first question is, do people from certain regions or countries have more difficulties in adopting product or project practices than other cultures? If yes, which are they and how can they be overcome? Who would like to handle this one?
I can start, at least from the point of communication. And I think that, yeah, like I'm not going to talk about the transformational techniques that can be managed. I think that's definitely for the guys to discuss, since they are project management experts and change experts. I do have a lot of experience with multicultural conflicts, and I think that this is what we're talking about here. So obviously, various cultures have very different approaches in terms of like how I understand and how I respect hierarchy. Can I give feedback directly or indirectly? Can I talk to my manager freely or like only in a very specific way? And everything here should definitely be managed. So I suggest that one of the things is that a specific way work is done is definitely reflected in the way change is done as well. And sometimes disrupt is good. Like, for example, if we go into the culture where there is a very strong hierarchy and you start to make developing changes on like showing people that you can talk throughout the vertical of the hierarchy, you can like have discussions, you can have opinions, and this is good, and we can discuss problems. So it can greatly benefit if the structure, if the company needs that. And it can help with the transformation as well. But sometimes it can have very negative effects. And if you don't see them coming, definitely like the thing that you want to do will not succeed. So again, you should definitely know the difference between cultures. You should see at how people work. And I really like to talk about even in one country, you definitely have a lot of cultures, and like a startup and a corporation at different parts of one organization can be as different as different nations as well. So this is what a leader of change should know and use in their change tactics.
Thank you.
I might add to this. So in Lithuania, we have a very strong project management culture. And this is due to historical facts. As we got Barclays, that was the first, maybe 15 years ago, 16 years ago, the first big corporation that came from the UK and created their IT center in Vilnius. And then several others followed. One of them I worked for, CSE, now called DXC Technologies, etc. So through that IT sector, a very strong project management culture was born. However, I've worked in Scandinavia. I worked with Brits, Americans, Indians. I don't see a big cultural change, difference in how people adopt project management practices, but I do see organizational differences. Similar to what Alexandra says, corporate versus startup. And in a lot of smaller organizations, right, they think that rigorous project management practices are a burden. Whereas in bigger corporations, they see that as a must, but not to achieve project success, but more to be compliant. So, and the truth is somewhere in between, right? You need to be compliant and you need to be flexible enough to get value. So how do we combat that? I don't know. Spread the joy of project management, educating higher level stakeholders, stuff like that. And actually telling the success stories of successfully managed projects that use whatever system or process they use.
Okay, thank you. If I may add my bit, from my experience, cultures with a high power distance have more difficulty. I don't know who of you is familiar with the work of, for example, Gerd Hofstede, who defined various types of cultures, and one dimension is power distance. we here come, speakers, or most of us come from countries with a relatively low power distance. That means you can talk to your boss like a normal person, of course, with respect, but it's not a god on a pedestal. There are countries where the boss is a god on a pedestal and you never say no to your boss, you don't complain to your boss, you never disagree with your boss, etc. And if you want to incorporate project management, you have to go across line structures. And sometimes you have to say no to your stakeholders, even if they are high in the hierarchy. Or if you use product management, say you have a product owner, everyone has to respect what the product owner says. But as a product owner, you're usually not very high in the hierarchy in an organization. Well, some are, but very often your working level or maybe mid-level, and then you have to say to someone who's much higher in the power structure in your organization, sorry, you're not going to have that feature because it's less valuable than the features which we already have in a product backlog, and we have a product backlog for a year. So in such cultures, from my experience, it will be more difficult. And what can help is leadership from the top, because especially in a culture where people expect the people at the top to tell them how to do things, if the people at the top tell them this is how we are going to do things, and yes, it's perfectly okay to say no, this feature will not be included in the next 3 or I don't know how many releases because we have more viable stuff in the product, that's perfectly fine. Or it's perfectly fine if you're a project manager that you have to say no to certain things to keep your project on time, in full budget, etc.
May I add to your addition?
Go ahead.
So the thing that you said is amazing, and this is like why I love going into details, because like even if the hierarchy structure and stuff is very different, you can always give more tools to people, more instruments to do the very same thing, but it will look very different. Like, for example, in one culture, someone can say no, like, yes, boss, but no, I'm not going to do that. And for example, my Canadian colleagues once told me, Alexandra, you're amazing, of course, but we don't like hearing no from you. Can you please rephrase that? And like, I noticed that they don't say no. I still get no answer. Like, I still don't, like, I understand that they refuse something, but they just don't say the word. They don't like the word. So they use different phrasing, and it's still clear for me, but it's a bit different. So knowing and like consciously understanding the way the thing can be done, like saying no to your stakeholder in different cultures, can help prevent the conflict, because of like, we're different, like we're a bit more Asian or we're a bit more American, but still help you achieve the goal.
It also depends what kind of a job you want to do, right? So if you have very straightforward tasks, if you need to build a tunnel or if you need to build a house or whatsoever, it's different than if you would require, you know, a number of knowledge workers to actually think about new solutions, etc. And where on the one hand, you want to be able to actually execute a plan. You can execute a plan. It's more about efficiency, and on the other hand, it's more about discovery and providing autonomy and room for people to actually, you know, come up with new ideas, etc. And it's a different way of steering those people. And that is also very much indeed cultural bound. Whereas, you know, you may end up in a situation where people may prevail their own personal goals over the team goals. There may also be cultures where that's not going to happen, and you know, it's about the collective thing that you want to achieve. So that's also very much ingrained with cultural assets as well. So yes, I agree with what Pavel said, is that project management methods will not really vary over the cultures, but it can be that where you apply them and how you apply them and how people actually respond to it can differ. But it also depends on the context. It depends on, you know, the level of work you need to do. A beautiful example which I came across was an experiment that they did at the London Underground, I'm not sure if you've ever been in the underground over there, but people running through each other and trying to catch the latest subway, underground, etc. And what they did there is they did an experiment where they said everyone who is now on the staircase on the the escalator should stand still. So what they previously had was only the right row stood still and the left row could walk. What they did was they had everyone at the escalator stand still, where the overall system flow improved actually. So at the end, the entire system profited from everyone standing still. So there were smaller queues at the bottom of the escalator, but that meant that everyone needed to stand still on the automatic escalator. And that was really hard to actually enforce in a culture where people are just used to actually, live for their own personal goal, which is, I need to catch my train. I need to be on time. I don't care about the whole system, right? So it's also very much ingrained in culture as well.
Thank you, Dave.
So can I also add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking, I think what happens is that you're all thinking about problems, and everyone right now was talking about different problems. That's what we do in different types of management. We want to solve different types of problem. So the question would be, do we have different problems in different countries or not? And how does it impact what we do? I think the problems are the same, but they have different degrees in different countries. So communication is always a problem. In some countries, less than the others. So we basically can have an idea of different things we have to worry about in general, and that would cover maybe 98% of the potential problems. But then in order to improve an organization, depending on the whole context, country is one of the things that determine the context. It's also about the industry, the type of people we have there. Based on all of those things, we have to prioritize those problems. What are the biggest problems they have based on their culture, the whole context, and then start going about them based on the priority.
Thank you. I'd suggest we move on to the next question, which is related. What are typical organizational culture challenges when adopting product management practices in an organization, and how can they be overcome? Dave, maybe that's one for you.
Yeah, I'd like to kick that off, if I may. So one of those typical challenges, it's really a hurdle in a lot of organizations, and that's how to deal with capacity and how to deal with the people in the teams. Do we actually allocate people to the projects, and do we move people to the work, or do we actually move work to the people? So do we have fixed teams where we bring work towards, right? And that's in a lot of cases when you start introducing product management ways of thinking and working, where things start to actually, they start to clinch a little bit. But in all cases, and this can be a bit more generic than just introducing product management ways of working, but also other more modern ways of working, whether it's portfolio or experience management or whatsoever, or agile way of working or whatever you may. The thing I run into a lot as well in terms of cultural adaptation is that we try to make it too big. We keep fluffy we keep culture too fluffy. So we talk about really important things like empowerment, or we talk about things like collaboration or customer oriented or proactive. And we all think this is really crucial, right? So we all have been in those cultural programs where the organization wants to be more passionate, they want to have more proactivity, more entrepreneurship, whatever. And everyone agrees, but no one knows what to do next, what to do else, what to do different the day after. So if I'm in a team and I'm an engineer, if I'm a product owner, I'm a product manager, or I'm a project manager, or whatever, I also want to do, okay, so what does this mean for my work? What can I do tomorrow in a different way that will actually help that cultural move to become more apparent? So what is my personal contribution to achieving a more of a product mindset or whatever we want to achieve? And that is, the most important question to me and to the teams that I work with is, so how can we make this so small that it's not some fluffy word that everyone agrees with, but how can we make it so small that we say, okay, proactivity is important for us. This means that I, as a product owner, when I, organize my backlog, I will always approach my team first to help me in organizing it in the right way, so that I set the priorities not only from a functional point of view, but also include the non-functionals in my prioritization. So that is a really tangible behavior that shows that cultural asset, that cultural value of productivity in the right way. So if we are able to make it really small, then we can make really small incremental steps towards those end goals. But making it small, in my opinion, is a crucial element.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very smooth change to the second thing. Like, again, Dave said everything that's amazingly right. And one thing I always see, like in any culture, just more or less, is how we approach failure. Because this is a keystone on can we actually do stuff and not be fluffy? Like, can we go from fluffy to other things? Like, because when I start doing something new, there definitely got to be errors and mistakes, and the way we approach it should be very different when you take the product management techniques. You have to stop thinking about right and wrong and correct, and you have to start thinking about hypotheses, testing them, and how can I fail? How can I fail? This is actually the question. Like, instead of how can I make a success, how can I fail faster, quicker, and cheaper? This is like what we do when we go to product management from me, like from project. How can I fail faster, cheaper, and how can I be less stressed about it? And how can I do it more? Because only in this way I can go from one right project to various different hypotheses that I test.
Thank you.
This was a TED-like moment, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sometimes you wait for others to come up with other great things. I was thinking about something. Why do we even have product management? It's because there are some people in the organization who believe that they are not super expert in everything, and they have to leave some of the expert things needed for managing a product to a group of people who know what they do. So that's the first thing we need. And the second thing is for those people who are product managers to do what they can do and not do things that are outside their expertise and experience. That's exactly the cultural challenge that we have, not only for product management, also for project management, portfolio management, for everything else. We all think that we are so amazing in everything. So even, for example, when there's about graphic design, it doesn't matter how rich your organization is, they don't think that they can use an expert in graphic design to create posters for them. They do it themselves because they don't take it seriously enough. The same problem happens in everything else. We don't take other types of expertise and experience seriously enough. In my opinion, that's the biggest challenge, and that's what we have to fix.
Thank you. If I may add, one challenge I saw in real life is organizational silos. There are departments or divisions or whatever you want to call them. Each of them has a boss, and it's their kingdom. And they don't want anyone to interfere with their kingdom. And now you're supposed to implement product management, and they have to work with a product manager, they have to work with a product owner perhaps, who then will tell them things like, no, you're not going to get that feature. Or no, you're not going to get it soon because there are more valuable things in the pipeline. And usually they don't like it. They want to keep their kingdom. And that leads to conflict. So that's from my personal experience. And how to overcome it, well, many things were said before, or many ideas. One which I would add, again, if you have such a problem, leadership has to come from the top, and it has to be repeated. It's not just that the CEO says once, we want to introduce product management, please introduce product management and have fun with it, and let me know when you're done. This doesn't work. I saw that firsthand. So it has to be repeated, they have to talk to the people, they have to talk to the managers whose responsibilities and whose authorities are going to be impacted, and set an example. Good. Would anyone like to add anything?
I just tell you that I not only saw, I lived this kind of example. Tomorrow, we are going to be agile.
Yeah.
Here's your meeting. Here's your team. You're now an agile project manager. Yeah.
Or you're a Scrum Master from today on.
Yeah.
Add
So,
anything
like,
you like. Okay.
yeah.
I have a question.
But yeah, one more
Hey,
thing
go
to add,
ahead.
if I may. So I think it's not only having someone from the top telling what is important, etc. I think especially from a product standpoint, in terms of really moving towards empowered teams, is that everyone, and it seems like an open door, but everyone needs to also understand the why behind it. So if someone at the top tells, and it's also culturally bound, right? So if there would be a CEO in the Netherlands telling the knowledge workers how to do their work, he'll probably get a few middle fingers, and everyone will stop messing with our work. We'll do this ourselves. You do your work, we do ours. What's more important is that whether it's a CEO or whether it's a product manager or whether it's a customer or whoever, is able to actually verbalize the why behind it. So why is it important that we do this? What problems do we need to solve, and bring those to the teams? And I think that's way more important than someone telling what, or especially how, but also what to do.
Thank you. I have a fresh question here from Igor, so I'm going to give that for answering live. The question is, Alexandra, in case of preventing failure, it's common at automotive industry to use, for example, FMEA. In case of failure, they do use GAD report. Both approaches are systematic approaches, like to address them. Do you think you can leverage it in project management, like to run FMEA initiative in project initiating and then periodically through project? I guess that's not a question just for Alexandra, so anyone is welcome to answer.
I can start, since I was the initial addresser of this question.
Go ahead.
So as I understood, the question is that we have various frameworks that are successfully used in other industries. So can we benefit from taking these approaches into what we do, for example, into project management? And well, I guess that is the question. So I was once in a situation where actually a person who was in a position of project management, I'm not entirely sure, took an actual framework. It was House of Quality framework. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar. It's not very famous. So they took it from automotive industry into the industry of creating programs, what we did. And at first it felt like an amazing idea, but going forward, we realized that it was too complicated for us. So in that case, it was easier to change the approach altogether, but we did take some interesting ideas from it, like, and we enhanced the way that we did stuff. So what I'm trying to say from the example is that the way, and I actually saw this a lot, like sometimes a comprehensive and amazingly working approach in one industry can is interesting to be integrating, like we would like to integrate it into something else because it works so well. So just doing so, we should not again do it blindly. We should see if this is beneficial. Like, don't we do it too much? Like, don't we overthink? Like, for example, taking corporate practices that work well in corporation and take it into a startup. That's we don't do this. That's BS. But some of the things that are done in corporations can be done in startups and vice versa. So when taking an approach from somewhere else, you definitely should be very familiar with these risks and what can you take, like not only the success of this approach, but what else, what inheritance problems are you also taking with you, and do you actually want them? That's like that.
Thank you. Nader, would you like to add something? You're the systems guy here.
I was thinking there are two different things. One is to get a method from a different place and use it. It's sometimes possible, but sometimes not a good idea, sometimes risky. For example, when something comes from manufacturing, in manufacturing, we are dealing with optimizing everything, something that repeats all the time. We optimize it, we want to be the best possible way. But when you come to projects, we are dealing with uncertainties first, optimization next. They also have uncertainties, but not as much as we have. So optimization for them comes first. But for us, we have to be ready to react, or preferably proactively do something about things. So some of the methods they have in manufacturing doesn't work very well in projects. But that's the first thing. That's about taking something from another industry and using it in projects, which sometimes work and sometimes doesn't work. But we have a second option. We can go and check it there and use it as a source of inspiration. So we won't use it directly, but maybe we can let it synthesize with something else that we have in our own industry and get something good from it. And one last thing, these are all things that we have to try. We will try it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Even those that don't work are valuable because we've tried and we learned something. Those that work are working because we are brave enough to test new things.
Thank you. I suggest we move to the next question, which is, what can we all do to enable frameworks and approaches like DevOps, portfolio, project and service management to work together? And product management should be on the list as well, obviously, to work together and reinforce each other optimally.
If I'm allowed, I'll take this one, or I'll start this one.
Go ahead.
What we see in many situations is that when people want to use different systems, they end up in a discussion about semantics of different roles. So one might say a Scrum Master and the other says a project manager, and it becomes a whole discussion about which one can do what and what it exactly means. And that prevents people from actually getting things done. So while instead of focusing on the names, I think when using different systems together, it's important to understand why you have different roles and what their responsibilities are, instead of the different names that every different system uses. And way too often, and also on LinkedIn, you see it way too much, is people, when talking about different methodologies, starts discussions disagreeing with each other about different names, but in reality, the common understanding is there. It's just about semantics. And that's a real issue, I think, when using different systems. And it's not that hard to overcome. That being said, I think there are systems on the market that focus especially on modularity. And I think for OMIMO, but Nader can explain that better. It's one of the core values where every management module they create is focused on modularity. Meaning it's designed to use with different other systems. For example, their portfolio management system can be used either with the P3 Express project management system from the same family, but you can even use it with Prince2 or other systems. So that's designed with that modularity in mind. And if it's not designed with modularity in mind, you have to put a little bit more focus or attention to the different terms and the semantics of them.
Okay, thank you. Dave, Nader, Pavel.
Yeah, I'm very eager to add because I really agree, Alexandra. So focusing on the underlying principles is way more important than trying to find the things that are diverse or trying to find different jargon that you use, different vocabulary that you use. So I've been in so many organizations where the business is talking in lean terms. So they all talk about the voice of the customer and doing kaizens, etc. And then IT is coming with all sorts of agile methodologies and terms like retrospective and reviews and with the role of the product owner, etc. And they don't understand each other. But on the other end, they both talk about, value and listening to the customer, but one is talking about the voice of the customer and the other one is talking about the role of the PO. They all talk about continuous improvement, but one is talking about Kaizen and the other one is talking about retrospective. So they use different terms, they use different instruments to actually capture the underlying principle. But if we would just look under the lid and just focus on what's now behind it and why are we doing this and what are the underlying principles, it would make it so much easier. It's just like real marriage, right? So you will have different characters, but on the end it's all about finding those common goals and common values that are behind it, and those need to match. But then still you can have two different characters to actually build something really great.
Thank you. Nader, Pavel, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so we are pretty much all in agreement here. I must just add and use what Alexandra said in her presentation. We need to get emotions out of the way. So they are part of life, right? But I mean, we need to handle emotions before we implement these or try to get to the bottom of the things that Alexandra and Dave has talked about. So a lot of times, if people call themselves agile, right, they will say documentation is a detriment to an agile delivery of software development, stuff like that, right? And so this is an emotional response to something people believe in, not necessarily have tried. Any change comes with that emotional burden. So if we want to create better synergies, we need to deal with those emotions first and then get to the change itself, whatever that is, and look for logical synergies that Dave has described so eloquently, right? And in addition, that cannot be fake. It needs to be genuine. So it's better not to talk about DevOps if you're not going to develop a system that is DevOps in your organization and actually use it. So much so it is not useful to talk about emotions if you just fake it and learn it at Alexandra's or at the training, but do not actually mean it. Sometimes, of course, you can use the approach of fake it till you make it, but there needs to be a genuine desire and need to actually do it to get the value out of the things and their synergies. Another thing is, I would say, is if you don't know the difference, stick to one thing and just do it fully. At least that way, you'll have a better chance of getting one system and maximizing its results. Whatever you do, stick to the guns. Don't, fret, don't hesitate, and just keep working on it till you get better, at least at one thing. Right?
Thank you. Alexandra, would you like to add anything?
I think everything that was said was already up to the point, and I really love the fact that other presenters listen to my presentations. Thank you so much. This always warms my heart and agree with it. So yeah, I honestly don't have anything to add to this point.
Good, thank you. So let's move to the next question.
How about me?
Sorry.
How about me? Maybe I can ask.
I offered you the opportunity to speak, but well, go ahead.
And actually, it was interesting because when you asked the question, my whole thought was about the fact that we need to have modules and clear interfaces between them for different layers of management or different places in the organization. But then when David started talking, I remembered a lot of things aligned with what Dave said. And I think that's also very important. One common problem that we have in organizations is that we want the whole organization, everyone in the organization, to see the things from our perspective. So we want to be this oriented, that centric, and we push it to everything in the organization. And that makes it very difficult because that's what makes sense in our layer. Maybe that's not the case in other layers, not maybe in marketing, not maybe in sales. We are not everything in the organization. The organization is a complicated whole. We have to respect other people. Again, to my previous question, respect other people, other types of expertise, and work together. That's key in having an effective whole.
Thank you. That brings us smoothly to the next question. How can we prevent building two organization silos, one organized around project and the other one organized around products?
I would start with, we talked a bit about portfolio management, and for me, portfolio management can have two different perspectives. One is looking at a portfolio of initiatives where you look at, the best investment to make for your organization. The other one is also looking at your portfolio of products and services that you currently have in pipeline, or that you're currently delivering, or that are currently running in operations and that are currently actually being used by users or by your employees or whatever you're delivering. So I would start with actually, combining the product and service viewpoint together with the new initiatives and the changes and whatever you use as a container to run those. They can be projects, they can be epics, features, whatever you're using. That doesn't really matter. As long as you make sure that the portfolio has the entire view on this, and therefore has the entire view on the full life cycle. And the second one I'd like to mention here is that as long as you keep focusing on, I think it was Nader who also stressed, the point around benefits and value. I'd like to add, the eventual experience as well there. So you're delivering, whether you're, doing projects or you're delivering products and services to your users, etc. It all boils down to, can they actually retrieve value from using those products and services in the end? That's what it boils down to. And it can be very measurable in terms of they are using these products and services so many times. This is the performance. This is the amount of users that we have right now, and it's growing, so we have more revenue or whatever. It can be very tangible. It can also be pretty intangible. So the experience that people have with products or services, but also with new things that they're dealing with, changes or projects or whatever, measuring the experience and measuring the sentiment, what it's doing to those actual people that are dealing with those results. I think that's really crucial, to make sure that you really continuously measure what is the eventual experience of whatever we are delivering to our customers and users, but also to our employees and also to our environment. So increasingly, we find it important not only to deliver good services and make good money out of it, but deliver good products and to have happy customers. We increasingly find it important to also deal with our environment and our climate and citizens, that we have a sort of an ethical responsibility as an organization to not only deliver good products that work and that sell, but also have an environmental responsibility as well. So we want to have happy customers, we want to have happy co-workers, we want to also have a happy climate and, for instance, happy citizens. So, you know, having that full holistic view on the eventual experience, it will help to prevent that we start thinking in silos.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to add anything?
Yeah, actually, for me, this question wasn't clear before, but when Dave gave the answer to my question during his presentation, now it feels like we already talked about it. So I just want to emphasize what I take from this this event, that since I'm in an organization which is far too small for now for thinking about portfolio management, this word scares me right now. So like we have responsibilities and we have projects, that's it. But for me now, like without silos, this would be like, yeah, we run the business the way we run business, and we have very focused, very structured projects, which are very well defined and the relationship of these projects to the areas of expertise that we have, or the actual business processes that we have every day, is very clear. Like if we have a project, we understand what, why, when, and who, and what for. So, and this, in my opinion, like now it becomes much clearer to me. I'm actually taking like this to my organization to change, like, oh, hey guys, we have some silos, let's get rid of it. So this clears it up for me, at least at some point. Sorry, I mean, I get you get what I mean.
Okay, thank you. We've got one more question. Considering recent experience with a certain examination institute, which retroactively changed personal certificates validity or currency, or whatever they call it, from life to 3 years, that means you had a certificate issued for life, and now it's valid just for 3 years, and they want money from you to get it extended. What guarantees do we have that it will not happen with certain OMIMO DASA certificates? That's a question we keep getting quite often from our customers.
Yeah. So as we run a certification organization, maybe I can take this question.
Go ahead.
I will not discuss other certification institutes, but the way we have structured it is whenever an exam is taken with us, we have an agreement with a candidate, a legal agreement, on the basis of which a certificate is issued. And as far as I understand, the legal agreement is binding and cannot just be ended by one party. So as when we issue a certificate with a valid, with a specific duration, that is the duration, and it cannot legally be changed afterwards. It's like selling you I don't know, a Netflix subscription for 3 years, and after 1 year saying, hey, well, you have to pay me another year for the 2 other years. No, that's not how it works. So I can say nothing more, but then we have a legal agreement with people who do a certificate, and the agreement is for the amount of time that their certificate is supposed to be valid for. And since we are a respectable company, we value legal agreements and will not retroactively end them, which is, according to Belgian law at least, not possible.
Okay, thank you. Another, yeah?
Yeah. I think there's also a legal agreement, at least implied, in all of these cases, including that unnamed examination institute. But the problem is that for a normal individual, it's not worth going to the courts to extend their certificates. So the organizations may feel free to do it unless something special happens. For example, someone takes the lead to bring people together and sue them. I think what helps is to have something above that. And in OMIMO, we have that. The guarantee that we have in OMIMO is its license. It's a non-proprietary license, meaning that anyone can take it and go to a better direction with it. So the core original team and changes in the future, they can only continue doing what they do if they are decent people. If they start doing nasty things, people will just detach from them and start going to a different direction with the modules that are created there, because they are not limited by copyright. So that is the guaranteed, and that's the same guarantee that we have with open source. The license and the possibility to fork it. So the people who are making those decisions, they always have to stay decent people.
Thank you, Nader. Dave, would you like to answer on behalf of DASA?
Well, do you want us to sign in blood, or what do you want?
Well, that would be a way.
I'm
Perhaps something more practical.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not actually very much into the whole legal stuff around the certificates. But according to my knowledge, if you have a certificate, so if you have done a training, if you have done a some kind of 2-day program or whatever, that we do not attach a certain time limit to it. So yeah, I think it's up to the certification body, it's up to the industry body to make sure that you continuously adopt and adapt and improve your own trainings and your own certifications and your own, whatever is needed. And that means that you can come up with new versions, whatever, right? So let's take DevOps fundamentals, for instance. 7 years ago, we started with version 1. Then a few years ago, we started with 2. And now earlier this year or last year even, we came up with DevOps fundamentals 3. So they're actually evolutions. So you start up with new versions. That doesn't mean that your previous version is no longer valid. It means that you may want to invite people to keep actually investing in themselves and to make it attractive for people to actually continue working on new versions or whatever. But that's a different question, in my opinion, than the validity or the lead time of a certificate.
Actually, if I am allowed, I'd quickly like to respond to Dave.
Go ahead.
So this brings us to the whole discussion about how long should a certificate be valid. And I think Dave makes an excellent point there. He's in saying, okay, what version is exactly certified? So if you look at the certificate, it promises to an external party, which is your employer or anyone reviewing your certificate, that the holder of that certificate has certain knowledge. And you are confident as a certification institute that certified individual possesses that knowledge. That's your guarantee as a certification institute. So it has two things. One is the scope of that knowledge, and that's embedded in the version of the best practice. And then how long you are confident that that knowledge is, that certification of that knowledge is valid. So what we do for all our certifications, of course, is that it's linked to a specific version of knowledge. So like Dave says, you're certified in fundamentals 1, 2, or 3, which are different certificates. That doesn't have little to do with the validity in duration more than with the specific knowledge you are certifying. Then considering the certification duration, that becomes a difficult discussion we have many times with different IP owners we work with. Some say, well, we are only confident to, especially for practitioner certificates, to say that whenever you've done these exams or assessments, you're allowed to call yourself a certified practitioner for 3 years, because after that, we're not entirely sure if you're still using it or not, and how well you still understand it. So that's a question that every knowledge owner needs to ask themselves. I think in the case of P3 Express, they found a relatively suitable solution for that, saying, we don't want to take the decision ourselves on when you need to recertify, because that might appear commercial, and OMIMO is a non-commercial organization. But we will leave it to the certified individual, meaning on your badge or on your certificates, we attribute the year you have achieved your certificate in. So for example, if you do it this year, you're P3P certified 2024, and it will be visual on your badges, on your certificate, everywhere. So it's up to your employer or whoever reviews your certificate to say, well, am I confident that 10 years after getting the certificate, this person is still good at P3 Express or knows P3 Express? So we for this specific certificates, not for all certificates in our portfolio, it's up to the party that's reviewing the certificate. With, of course, OMIMO has this guarantee that if you have a valid certification, you receive a free update every year for that certification. So if you want, you can update it every year to the newest version.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess the question was answered, and we answered all the questions we had, and we took the whole time box. So this brings us to the end of our event. Thank you very much for all the speakers for taking the time to prepare your speeches, presentations, and to be with us today. Thank you also for your wonderful answers to the questions. Thanks to all event participants for staying with us and asking questions, participating. I would also like to thank a person whom you don't see, but I see her, Monica, who was involved in organizing the event, who sent all those wonderful LinkedIn notifications. I would also like to thank Radka, our assistant, who was involved in this event as well. If I forgot someone, forgive me. Thank you as well. And
yourself also.
okay.
Štefan. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone. As said, the presentations will be made available sometimes early next week. And looking forward to seeing you again, be it at one of our other events or the events of our partners or one of our trainings perhaps. Until then, good luck with your projects, good luck with your products, good luck with your changes, whatever you're doing, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.